So I believe in tone setting hits, and that's applied to now my business. When I take that stage, this is someone different, and this is a new experience, and it's a tone setting hit in a more pleasant,
I love that analogy.
way. And I teach my kids, when you walk on the court, when you walk on the field, you make eye contact with everyone, you respect everyone, you fear no one. Start fast, you go hard, and it's amazing what will happen.
Hey, welcome back to Bullpen Sessions. My name is Andy Neary, and I am excited this week because if you've been listening to my last few weeks of interviews, you've noticed I've brought back on some guests from the past, and today is going to be no different. I look at the people I've had on the podcast in the past, whether it was a year ago, 2 years ago, and some folks I am very, very intrigued to bring back on. Number one, they're just good people, and two, they talk about they're focused on topics that are very, very timely today. So remember, the common tie they all have is they're former college or pro athletes, but they have gone on to chapter 2 of life to have tremendous success. And today's guest is no different. Today, I have Andre Young. Andre is a professional speaker, author, leadership trainer, founder of You Evolving Now LLC. He worked as a mental health therapist for 19 years, played sports at every level from high school to professional. He's been an employee, a business owner, and self-employed, and has written 4 books focused on enhancing leadership and work-life harmony. So I'm excited because if you listen to Andre, he was on episode 165. He's had a hell of a sports career. He's had a hell of a career as an entrepreneur. So Andre, welcome back, my friend, to Bullpen Sessions.
Wow, thank you so much. Such an awesome introduction, and always a pleasure to spend time with you. And you guys listening, thank you for letting me steal some of your time. And I would say, well, I had an okay career, but an awesome is about 5 minutes in the pros and out of there, but a great experience nonetheless.
In baseball, we call that a cup of coffee, Andre. And I too had a cup of coffee in pro baseball. So we're going to talk about that for sure. Quick before we dive into your story, though, who do you got this weekend? The Eagles or the Chiefs?
I have to go with what wins championships. So I'm going with the Eagles. I'm from Philly, but I'm a Steelers fan. I like to see the Eagles win. However, I would not be upset if Patrick Mahomes gets 2. 2 Super Bowls solidifies you in an air that can't be reached. However, I know that running the ball and having a great defense wins Super Bowls. So I got to go with the team that's been consistent on defense all year long and has been able to run the ball all year long. So from that, I have to go with the Eagles.
Yeah, well, and I will say I'm kind of a sucker for good stories, and I actually find it really cool that how many people doubted Jalen Hurts as a quarterback when he got drafted, and here he is leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Heck, he could easily be the MVP this year.
He's the MVP in my world regarding mental toughness. I mean, we're talking about sports, athletes. We're talking about leadership. Look, at the end of the day, mental toughness matters.
100%.
And your middle strength matters. It's not always what you do in the beginning, although important. It's not always what you do at the end, which is important. How do you do your middle? And I don't think anybody's done their middle better than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, no, and we're going to talk about that because you spent a large chunk of your career in mental health. And I think that's a big thing we need to talk about today. So, but before we get there, people can go watch or listen to episode 165. Let's go back there. Where were you born? Tell us. We're going to start with the upbringing of Andre Young.
Oh, yeah. I was born in Philadelphia, inner city Philly. It was that born and raised.
I was going to say, it's kind of a Will Smith story here.
Right. So it was cool. Interestingly enough, though, I was born 1976. However, being a kid, 9, 10 years old, it's when crack cocaine came out. And I have never seen anything like it. I mean, you talk about the zombie movies and World War Z. It was like a plague, a tidal wave that just hit my area where I lived and just wiped through everything. And it was one summer everything's good. You know people. There's friends down the street and all of these different things. And the next, it's like, so hard to watch people that were just straight A students last year laying on the top of a Cadillac and can't get up. It was a hard experience to see and go through, a very dangerous experience at times. However, what a life lesson of what to do, what not to do. And I was very blessed and honored to be able to have both my parents at the same time and being a guiding force to say, listen, you got to leave the house, go that way, not this way. And being very mindful about who you spend time with was really, really important. So I really honor them for leading us through that, especially while we're out there in the world, pre-cell phones, and they have to listen to gunshots and drug deals and this and that, and just praying that your kid comes home. I can't imagine what it must have been like for them.
Well, and it's funny you bring up the cocaine pandemic, right? Like I remember, I was born in 77, so a year after you, but I've heard this a lot lately on podcasts, people who grew up, maybe in Philly or New York. The 80s was defined by that cocaine pandemic in some of those big cities.
Yeah.
Even and think about, I was looking at something a little while ago about, I think it was like the 1985 or 86 NBA draft. And how many of those first round picks never did anything because they were banned for cocaine?
Wow.
They were out of the league in a year because of drug abuse. And that defined that time, unfortunately, but you said something, thinking about being born and raised in Philly. You said something early in the podcast about being a Steelers fan. I got to ask, man, how does a kid born in Philly become a Steelers fan? That's like sacrilegious.
You're going to get me in trouble here with all of the Philly people listening, and you guys at home. Like, I love you. Great people. That time in my life, I was just really falling in love with football. I got into sports late, by all concerns, so about 13, 14. And there was a stretch of the Eagles where I compare it to, it's the girlfriend you love. You love her to death, but she keeps freaking cheating on you. And at some point, you just got to let her go. You got to let her go for your mental health. You got to let her go for your future. And they were just so daggone bad. And at that time, I fell in love with football, and I was a defensive guy at heart. I wanted to hit, I wanted to smack. Now, the Eagles had a great defense at one point, like early 90s. Wow, I can name every single player from that team. However, the Steelers, I could name everybody from their team, just the way they played, the way they, and then their offense and the winning. And it was a really, really transformative time for me. And it really stuck with me.
Yeah, I think about that early 90s, man. That defensive line for the Eagles, that was legendary.
I can name every single one of them.
Who was the guy that died? Or Jerome Brown? Was he the gentleman the guy that died while he was way too young? Mm-hmm. But I mean, Reggie White, Jerome Brown,
Clyde Simmons. I can name the linebackers, the safeties, the DBs. Great. However, around 94, 95, when I was really coming into my own high school wise, like 93, 94, the Steelers were really at the top, and it was fun to watch them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely. So what high school did you go to in Philly?
Well, I went to I laughed because they couldn't have been more different. So my 9th grade and 10th grade year, I went to engineering and science. So George Washington Carver, engineering and science. It was a magnet school, really smart school in the city. And I failed out of there real quick with 4 F's, 2 D's, and a C. And I laugh, but what I understand now is that I'm ADHD, inattentive type. My son has the same thing. However, I didn't know a name for it back then. All I knew is that I was sitting in class, listening to the teacher, but I couldn't maintain time. Like her voice, she was speaking English, but it sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 wah. So I'm in school every day, and I remember my mom looking at my report card, and it's like, what is this? Like, she's never seen the letter F before. And I didn't know how to explain it to her because I was in school. I was there every day. So I was coming into my and love for football at the time, and they didn't even have a football team. So it was so fortuitous that I got sent to my neighborhood school, which is Martin Luther King. And guys, please forgive me. You're listening to this in Philly. At that time, and you know it, it was the worst school in the city. We had a mobile police station that sat out front that couldn't leave. There was multiple. It was a lot going on. I won't get into all of it. And now I'm with my neighborhood friends. And to be very honest, I mean, the school had a lot of great charter programs, but nobody ever told me. I didn't know anything. And I'm the starting running back and linebacker. And then they come to me the day before the game to say, son, your grades just came in. You can't play. And I remember crying like a baby. And that's when I decided to play semi-pro football. And I wasn't getting paid so I can go and play my senior year. And I made the team for this adult team with 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds. And we were the Northwest Giants. We had authentic Giants uniforms. We played the Eagles. We played the Steelers under the lights. And I was the running back. And I remember scoring my first touchdown against the Raiders in the snow in the playoffs. Still remember my dad coming out of the stands, giving me a hug, the team raising me up. It was so cool. I was 15 years old, and then I got to be able to play my senior year and earn some scholarships.
I was going to say, so that's really interesting, a really interesting journey to coming back to high school football. I didn't realize that. So you were actually playing like a local semi-pro league because you were academically ineligible to play in high school.
Yeah.
And playing, like you said, probably with adults. Here you are, 15 years old. So a couple thoughts that come to my head right away. Now you come back to high school football your senior year. Do you believe being a 15-year-old playing with adults helped you when you came back to high school football and now you're playing against guys your age?
Yes and no. So who I was playing with or against never meant anything to me because it was all about me. It was about my dream, my passion, my will, and nothing was going to stop me. And that's the way I encourage everybody to look at their dream. You marry your dream, but not the path. So who I was playing against didn't matter. It seemed to matter to everyone else, to a degree where, and it's really interesting. Nobody at that time was saying they were proud of me. I still remember my mom saying, well, once you take one of their hits, you're going to come back, And I remember saying, why would you say that? However, I now realize as a man that was a mom scared that her baby was going to get broken in half. Not everybody that says something that offends you is hating on you. Sometimes they're scared for you, or they wouldn't do it, or they see danger that you don't care about. So that's a life tip. And there were some people in the neighborhood that, maybe didn't like that I was doing that because I thought I was too good to play. And now I'm a challenge or something to conquer. So I didn't really get a lot of accolades for it. However, I do remember one big hit that I took. I forget his last name, but his name is Eric. And he was the Wes Hopkins, Andre Waters of the league. If we're going to talk about the Eagles from the 90s, right? I remember catching this pass, and I remember running, and I remember seeing him coming. Now, I'm all about 160 pounds at this time. I got muscles, but I'm still 160 pounds. And I remember lowering my shoulder. And this man hit me so hard. I remember flying the other direction. It didn't hurt, but I'm sure it looked really bad. And at that moment, if he didn't break me, no one could break me. So going to play high school football was,
it kind of became a cakewalk. I hate to use that terminology, but what I love about what you just said, Andre, is when you were told, son, you can't play, you're academically ineligible. It would have been easy for you to shut down. But you decided to take a different path and do something most people wouldn't have done, which is I'm going to go play semi-pro with these adults because I want to play football. Yeah. And I think to your point about your mom's concern for you, a lot of people are going to put what sounds to be offensive is them just placing their fears on you, right? But there's a lesson in that to be learned that when you were hit with your first failure, which is I'm academically ineligible, you decided to do something about it, which was go to play in the semi-pro league.
Well, and for me, from how I operate, it wasn't like this big thing, like I'm going to go conquer this. I just wanted to play.
Yes.
So I give I give so much credit to the coach that let me play on an adult league at 15 years old. And what that's really done for me is, I hope to your listeners, there's going to be people sometimes that come out of the blue that you believe have no business or the capability to do the job and the task they're asking for. But the fact that they're in front of you and asking, what will happen when you give them a shot?
You just hit it on the head. I was going to say every success story, I think, has two parts. Number one, your mindset, the mindset of that individual to overcome the failure, which you did by saying, I'm going to go play semi-pro ball. But part two, the second part, is somebody there to give you a chance. Mm-hmm. A success story always has to include somebody willing to give someone a chance. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what happened to you. So you're back playing high school football. Walk us through the journey. You ended up at Kutztown, in Kutztown College in PA, in Pennsylvania. What was that journey like? How did you end up playing? I believe that's Division II.
Yes.
How did you end up at Kutztown?
Well, I had aspirations, as many athletes do, of going Division I, and maybe I could have the talent or not. I was so raw because I had played Little League for 1 year. I played semi-pro the next year, okay, and then high school football. So I was so raw, and I wasn't this overly big 6'4", 220-pound kid, okay? So getting the scholarships, and I'm looking around, and Kutztown felt like home. And it couldn't have been more different from home. I'm coming from inner city, and I told you the culture and what was going on where I was at. Not that it's bad people, a lot of bad things happening and a lot of fun things happening. And then I go to Kutztown University, and if you know nothing about it, it's Amish town. So now I'm hearing the clickety-clack of horse and buggies. Yes, you heard me correctly. Horse and buggies. And, the biggest transition for me personally and athletically, so personally, was getting used to safety. Every player that I saw come up from any inner city afterwards me, it was a 2.5 month roundabout adjustment to the quiet and not having to look over your shoulder. People walking behind you briskly and not having to look around your shoulder. People apologizing and saying sorry for nothing, or I'm sorry I bumped into you. I'm sorry that wasn't happening where I and a lot of other recruits were from. So that was the bigger adjustment of how to relax, but then also how to return home, because now you have to readjust. Athletically and academically, it was and the old adage of time management. I did okay. I got hurt my first year. Wish I would have partied a little less. Okay, drank a little less. Worked out a little more. So what I learned is it's about creating a marriage. You want to be successful. You want to be a leader. You have to start marrying and be curious enough to marry what you want to do and give with what the person receiving your effort needs most from you right now. So I wanted to work out a certain way. I'm saying I want to be good. I want to do this. I want to do that. But I never asked my coach, what do you need most from me right now? What do you need from me so I can start and I can be great here and there can be a freaking statue outside when I come back when I'm in my 30s and 40s with my kids? And although I took football further than some people did, I was not the greatest player at Kutztown. I played with a guy that went 15th overall in the draft from KU, from Kutztown. I played with guys that were naturally touched by God to be football players. I had to work at it. And I never asked my coaches, what do you need most from me right now? So to this day, I am frustrated and embarrassed that I'm not going back and my kids don't see something with my name on it. That aggravates me.
Two questions. Ironically, even though Kutztown is a Division II program, it's had a few guys go to the NFL. I think the one that you played with, was it Mobley?
Yeah.
Who ended up having a nice career with the Denver Broncos.
2 Super Bowls, I'd say
that's an okay career, right? Two questions that I ask as a former athlete myself. Number one, when was that moment? What I call it your rock bottom moment when you realized, like, dude, I've got to change if I'm going to have a successful career here.
Yeah.
And then number two, playing Division II, knowing maybe you had a shot and the ability to play Division I, did that cause you to have a chip on your shoulder at all while you were playing at Kutztown?
To answer your first question, the rock bottom moment, it was going into my junior year. It was 5 years at Kutztown. Going into my junior year and almost failing out of the university for the second time. I was there to play football when I got there. Classes were optional. Fun was a must, and I had a ball. But I would say it was to my detriment because at one point I looked around and it was the second time, look, I'm about to, academically be asked to leave. And I looked around and most of the people, 95% of the people that I came in with weren't there anymore. And at that moment, I remember the moment, not the precise day, but the moment. And I said, I have swam too far. I've swam more than halfway. You wouldn't turn around and swim back. Finish. And I encourage every single one. You want to be a leader of your life, professionally and personally. You got to listen and apply your epiphanies. We all have them. We all have that moments where it stops us like a ton of bricks in a millisecond of a thought of enough. Finish. And that was the day everything turned around. And it really did help that I found sociology classes. And it was the first time I found classes that piqued my interest. I love people. I love studying people. And this was a class all about people and the way the world works. And my grades went from F's and D's and being eligible. Okay. The whole goal was to be eligible now to A's and B's. And it really changed everything.
What about I love that. It's funny. I think of college programming today, looking back at my career, I almost feel like psychology, sociology should almost be a required course today in college.
Yeah.
The ability to study people, read people, interact and adapt to people. I think it's something society is missing horribly. So I thank you for saying that class had a big impact on you. Cause I look back, I didn't take any psychology courses, but I look back and go, man, I wish I would have if I could do it all over again.
So much of it is theory. I would really like for them to start putting some practical, real life application things of it, because you can learn theory, you can learn why it's helpful, but how do you use it with your wife or girlfriend, husband, boyfriend at the moment, your coach at the moment? Let's take some of these things in theory and really make them applicable to today to allow the student to really prosper where they are right now, not with simply getting a job later, which no one's going to ask you about your sociology class.
Yeah. What about that chip on the shoulder? Folks, if you're listening, we're talking what, 1996, 97, there were no NIL deals, especially Division II football. Playing out, Kutztown, what city is that located in Pennsylvania?
Kutztown, PA.
Kutztown, PA.
Yep.
Did you play with a chip on your shoulder?
I didn't necessarily have a chip on my shoulder. All I wanted to do was hit. I wanted to hit. I wanted to go. And the chip on my shoulder really came from me being, I was a small linebacker, okay? I was already small. So the chip on my shoulder really became me thinking that everybody that saw me thought they could beat me. You thought you could take me. You thought this was going to be an easy win. And I played weak side linebacker. I played strong side linebacker. My job, especially as a strong side linebacker, was to fill that hole. So that fullback thought that he was going to hit me and push me out of the way so his friend could go score. Not today. And from the moment the whistle blew, that first play sets a tone. So I believe in tone setting hits. And that's applied to now my business. When I take that stage, right out the gate, this is someone different. And this is a new experience. And it's a tone-setting hit in a more pleasant
I love that
way. But I really, and I teach my kids, when you walk on the court, when you walk on the field, you make eye contact with everyone. You respect everyone. You fear no one.
Yeah.
And you start fast, you go hard, and it's amazing what will happen. Win or lose the game, even in a loss. I have been so proud when I see the opposing coach run up and chase us to tell my son, "Yo, you played a great game." And like that's sometimes the biggest compliments that I've received after games. Wasn't always the win. I really dislike losing more than I like winning.
Yeah. Walk us. I want to ask a couple questions here in a minute about, now that you have a son who's a very good quarterback in his own right, and what it's like to parent a child now who's a good athlete at the high school level. But before we dive in, I'm going to go back. Eventually, you had that cup of coffee with the NFL, right? What was that like? I mean, think about this journey for the folks listening in. One, you started your high school career academically ineligible, and you decided to go on and play semi-pro ball in the Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. Come back to play your senior year, earn the opportunity to go play college football at Kutztown, and all of a sudden now, here you are with an opportunity to make an NFL squad. What was that like?
It was terrifying because it was so brief. I mean, half a cup of coffee. So
was there even cream in there?
No. The New England Patriots, so their scouts came to work, me out and a couple of, Kutztown guys. And, it was about 3 of us. And what an experience. Now, we have to remember, this is pre-internet. I mean, it's not internet. I have no idea what they're looking for, what they're scouting for. And I made a huge mistake that I have now prepared my sons for. So I'm looking at myself, okay? So I'm barely 200 pounds, okay? I'm like, listen, especially in the 90s, I am not going to be an NFL size linebacker. I mean, everything was big and prototype back then, and everything was big. Even the shoulder pads was big, everything was big. So I said, okay, look, this isn't going to work. I need to switch to DB, okay? So when the scouts came, I'm working out as a DB. I've never done a defensive back drill. They're telling me to do certain things, and I'm like, okay, I'm watching the guy in front of me because he played safety and corner, and I'm like, okay, so I go, I'm doing these drills for the first time. So I look slow. I'm not slow, but I look slow. So, doing the workout with them, speaking with them, it was a great experience, but it led to pretty much nothing. Then it was a couple years later, I'm in the gym. I said, okay, I'm working out, pretty much done with football. Okay, I'm done. This guy starts following me around the gym, Andy, and I'm like, okay. He says, oh, you look like you played football. I said, yeah, I did. I'm kind of done. And he's following me around. And I said, should I be concerned here? Like, what's going on here?
Like you're back in West Philly.
Yeah, like what's going on here? And he wound up being a coach for an arena football team. And I said, look, I'm done. I appreciate the compliment. I'm done. Long story short, he wound up being a coach and talked me into trying out. I tried out for the team, made the team on one leg. So I'm a little older. I run a 4.37 40.
Still damn good, man, for older.
Listen, when you're older and run a 4.37 40, here's a tip. You don't run a second 40. Be done. Clock it, book it, I'm done. So I was having a great camp, doing all that stuff, ran the 40, went to go run my second 40 and tear my hamstring. Told the team, listen, you bring me on, you will not be sorry. Do not let this fool you. Let's go. They signed me. 3 weeks later, I tear it again. So I'm literally practicing with a torn hamstring, and 5 weeks, 5th week into the season, a championship season, you get the call. So like I said, the level, the extent of playing at that level was so brief. However, by the time I got there, if I'm being honest, I didn't even like football anymore. I liked the idea of it. My body had changed. I had kids. It was, here's the thing with success. You have to be careful because one of three things is going to happen. You're either going to get it, but you're not who you need to be to keep it and enjoy it. Option two, you get it, but it's not how you thought it was going to be. We were, one of our sponsors was Hooters. I'm telling my wife at the time, hey, look, I got to go to Hooters. I'm under contract. So you want to argue now or do you want to argue later, but I got to go. You know, there's certain things and obligations that happen off the field and lastly, you get it. Success is great. And then here comes life to come and change everything. So I got it, but it was no longer what I thought it was going to be. I was not the same person that I wanted it to be to need it and keep it and enjoy it.
Well, and I think about pro athletes today, the ones playing at the highest levels and making the 8-9 figures. I think people would be surprised how large of a number of those athletes actually don't like the sport, but they're playing because they're making generational wealth.
Right. Everybody has a different why. Some are there for the check and generational wealth. Some love it. Some can't imagine why they would walk away from it. Or you're taking care of other family members and they're really depending on you for that. And some say, I don't know what else I would do if I didn't do this.
So yeah, they don't have a chapter 2,
right,
which is what we're going to talk about. Now, one question I'd love to ask, because this is a big one. Now, your son, Mace, right?
Yes.
He's a sophomore?
Freshman
in high school. And you're in Reading, PA.
Yes.
And he's a talented quarterback. And you've been that athlete in the past, and now you're the father of that athlete. There's a lot of parents listening to this podcast with high school athletes. Looking at his talent and his ability, there's a fine line between being parent, living vicariously through that child, and coddling that child a little too much and not letting them fail.
Yes.
What advice would you give parents today who have that kid, that son or daughter who's talented at a specific sport at a high school level, to make sure that they are parenting the child in a way that supports them, doesn't coddle them, but at the same time, make sure they're not living vicariously through them?
Wow. I love the question. And I like to start off by saluting all of the parents that are doing that job. Okay, it is so hard. You work your job, you have your own business, whatever you're doing professionally, and then you turn into an Uber driver at after school where you're taking the kids everywhere to their stuff. And honestly, I had no idea how hard it was going to be the parent of a quarterback specifically. My older son played football, then basketball, and it was difficult. But being the father of a quarterback where only one can play at a time. It's not a rotation like in basketball. It's not like you have a 3-headed monster at running back or 5 wideouts. Only one can play or you're holding a clipboard. So it's massively stressful as a parent. And you don't want to push so hard that they wind up resenting you. You can't push harder for a dream that you care about more than they do. And you want them playing football for them because football hurts already. Can you imagine how much more it hurts when you don't love it? So one of the things that I have implemented, created on my own, have adopted, and now teach, for leaders at organizations is the grading system. So when I was playing college ball, every Monday after a game, you evaluate film. We got graded, on every snap that we played, A through F. So Mondays was either a really good day or a really bad day, okay? In business, they have the annual review, the dreaded annual review, where you come in and your number's already circled. And I hated that because how are you circling my number? I haven't seen you in 6 months and you're evaluating me. So what I did was now when my son comes off the field or comes off the court or has a private practice with his coach, I ask him. So I first ask him, what grade do you give yourself? Whatever he says, A through F, I say, well, why? And let's say he says he gives himself an A-. I say, great. What does that A- mean to you? but I make them stay positive. Don't tell me why you're not an A plus and what you didn't do. Tell me why you're not an F, a D, a C, a B. What made you the A? Okay, great. What do you think would take you from an A to an A plus? He has his answer. Now stay with me. Now I ask his coach, what grade would you give him? If the grades match, great. And are they matching for the same reason? When they don't match, and my son says he was an A minus, but the coach says he was a C, we don't spend time fighting over the letter. We spend all of our time focused on improving the gap. Focus on the gap. So now he's not mad at me. He gave himself his own number. He's not mad at the coach. The coach gave him a number. We focus on the gap because that marries what he wants to do with what the coach needs most. And now that's how we win. Focus on the gap. And it helps remove your ego, your frustration. And after a game, he gets to evaluate. So many kids, they'll get in the car after a game and they're trying to either forget the game or they're overly praised for the game. So I record every play so he can slow motion it down and look at it himself and also prove to him that I'm not lying. Like, listen, this is what you did. Okay? So it's what grade do you give yourself? And then let them evaluate themselves and you will see how serious they are if or the corrections are not made.
That was a 3-minute masterclass on parenting. Like if we could have done,
no matter what the grade, be sure you tell them you love them.
Yeah.
No matter what grade you give yourself, no matter how good you do, how bad you do, I love you. What grade do you give yourself?
When it comes time to like putting this podcast out, Andre, like if we could have done a 3-minute podcast right there on parenting, and that was it. How to parent an athlete right there. That was beautiful. Now here's where this is where I love this. You're the founder of You Evolving Now. You're a successful, highly successful coach, leadership coach, renowned speaker. Take what you just said and let's apply that to leadership inside an organization.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that for what you just said about parenting your child. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about how a leader should be leading his or her organization.
Absolutely. I call it the definition and the R. Okay. So the definition and capital R. And when I go into organizations, whether it's a one-off and I'm coming in for a speaking engagement or one training, or it's multiple trainings, always start first off with work-life harmony, but that's a whole different concept. Then I share my definition of leadership. And I break down the 5 words it takes to be a great leader. I say, listen, can you be of influence? Can you be of impact? Can you protect your people? Can you decide? And then can you maintain high standards and expectations? You can do these 5 things and they yield results. You're a leader. Now, based off of what I shared, and I get a little bit more into it, I'll ask the audience. I ask the leaders, the employees. What do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 as a leader? You don't want them to give themselves an F. I don't. So so you change it to numbers. 10, you so daggone good, you can close up and get out of here. You don't even have to be here. Don't do that, right? 1, you're not even on the radar. And I ask them to put their numbers up so they can see it, but they can also see other people's numbers. And Andy, you guys listening, you'd be so surprised what I see. So many employees have this myth that leaders think they're the greatest thing in the world, shouldn't have any issues because they make a little bit more money than them. I've seen leaders hold up 10s, very rarely. I've seen leaders hold up 4s, 3s, okay? And then we go through the process. Now, I say as a leader, what are you rating yourself? Then I say, as your administrative task, because you could be leading the heck out of your people. Like when I was promoted to a position of leadership, I was great at leading I was good at leading my people at first, okay? But I was horrible at my paperwork. What do you think the organization cared more about? Me leading my people and them liking me, or getting the paperwork and the money crossed off the list, okay? So how do you rate yourself administratively? And then how do you rate yourself as a co-worker? Because you can be great leading your team, but a nightmare in the boardroom with other divisions of the company. So after we do this rating and people have their numbers, Well, then, hey, what does that number mean to you and why? And if you're a 6, don't tell me why you're not a 7, 8, 9, or 10. I want to hear why you're not a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Now, what do you believe would take you up a number or 2? So if you're a 6, what do you believe would take you to a 7 or 8? The positive is that you have an answer. The concern is you only have your answer. So I get to teach the get great question, and I say, Andy, coach, husband, wife, kid, employee, I want to be great. What do you need most from me right now? And then they're going to say, oh, no, keep doing what you're doing. And you know better to say, hey, I appreciate you saying that, but I really want to know. Now, I know you're busy. I'd like to ask you later in the week, or I'm available Monday at 1 o'clock or Thursday at 3 o'clock. What time works best for you? I really want to know. And we as leaders give our people permission to tell us the truth. And whatever they say, you don't have to do. But you can no longer complain about what you don't get. And whatever they do say, what are you willing to do? A little bit outside of your comfort zone, but not so much you wind up hating their guts or the task.
When I hear somebody say something that just clicks on all levels of how it applied to you in sports and how it applies today in business, that right there was one of the best I've ever heard, which is your whole college football career changed when you asked the get great question to your coach. But it's the same question every employee should be asking of leadership. How can I get better? It's the question you asked your son. You asked his coach. You talked about work-life harmony. And I think work-life balance is kind of a misnomer. I don't think there is ever true balance. Some people call it work-life integration. Yeah. What's your definition of work-life harmony?
My definition of work-life harmony is, one, it doesn't have to be balanced, because balance assumes that everything is going to be perfectly balanced, as if it was, you can maintain it and keep it that way. And as if your life and all of the people around you need the same amount from you. And they don't. So harmony goes back to that marriage. Harmony means you know what you need for you. You are willing to put you in your calendar and the things that make you better for yourself and other people. You also have a vision of what you want professionally or personally. And you are asking that get great question. So it's marrying what you want to do and give with what the people around you need most from you. And I have great work-life harmony. I have no balance. I have 4 kids and run 2 companies. I have no balance. There's no balance. However, I have great harmony because I know what my wife wants and needs from me most right now. I know what my 2 daughters need, my 2 sons need. I know what my business needs. I know what my team needs. And because I will do that a little bit outside my comfort zone for each of them, I rarely get burnt out and stressed out. And it's harmony, not this perfect balance that I got to keep and maintain. So, and when I do start to get tired, I recoup. I don't like, some people are like, oh, well, you need a rest. And I'm big on vacations. Vacations are necessities, not luxuries. However, I don't need long vacations. I need recoup time. It's just like recovery time for athletes. Not every athlete needs a 2-week rest. They need great recovery practice and skills.
Well, and with that being said, you just came out with your book, your most recent book, The Leader's Toolbox, in December. Tell us a little bit about that book. What was the premise behind writing it?
Oh, wow. The premise behind writing it was expanding Wave 4 from the previous book. So the previous book, 7 Ways to Lead. And Wave 4 was the daily leadership skills it takes to effectively lead and run a team. So 7 Ways to Lead, I believe anybody can pick up, from CEO to frontline employee to the unemployed, can pick that up and enhance their leadership and work-life harmony skills. The toolbox, the Leader's Toolbox, takes Wave 4, and that's the whole book. So you have to be in a position of leadership, or desire to be, for that book to be for you. And it's all of the tools that will help enhance your existing tools in your toolbox professionally and also add some. And, it features like the 5 types of managers. We all learn how to manage. We all manage before we know how to effectively lead. Okay. The 5 types of leaders, the 5 types of clients, and so many more things. A leader's pass off. Oh my goodness. Have you ever, you guys listening, and Andy, have you ever been passed off as a customer or client to someone else, and the pass off was so abrupt and so rude and so unwell done that you decided to take your business elsewhere?
100%.
We have to learn how to effectively pass off responsibilities once we are promoted and moved on to make it effective. So it's things like that, the little nitty gritty things that people don't talk about.
That's so important these days, because I think something as basic as, let's just call it customer service from a leadership, it's so overlooked these days. Leadership has changed in so many ways over the past. I mean, let's just call it since the pandemic, leadership has changed. Mm-hmm. And, with your 2 books, 7 Ways to Lead, and now the Leader's Toolbox, if one of the listeners wanted to get their hands on a copy, what is the easiest way to grab a copy of either book? Now, and it sounds like they should read 7 Ways to Lead before they read the Leader's Toolbox.
Well, it depends on where you are in life. When I speak at conferences, I say, well, who's in the audience? When you have more frontline, employees, when you have individuals that may not be making decisions within an organization, and that makes up a lot of people. That's most, that book, or coaches or players, the 7 Ways to Lead is for you. Now, you desire and know you're promoting up, want to be or in a position of leadership, the toolbox is for you. But you're going to get a lot more work-life harmony from 7 Ways to Lead.
Got it.
Getting both books or any of my books, wherever you get books, that's where they are. So wherever you're most comfortable getting books, they're there. You can also obviously go to Amazon. I think I can get the earth sent to me in 2 days from Amazon if I ordered it. And then my website. So youevolvingnow.com, YOU, evolvingnow.com. And everything's there, from my books to my online courses. Or maybe you want to simply get on the Zoom and chat and customize with me. I would love to be able to do something with you and for you.
And I will tell you, you're also, again, a renowned speaker. And I want to say this because I think some people are just born with a voice that is motivational, and you are one of them. It's some people just have that voice. When you hear it, it's like, I think of somebody like, do you know who Jocko Willink is? The former Navy SEAL. Like, he's got that voice that he's just motivational, right? Yeah. You're one of those people. If somebody's listening and wants to bring you in as a speaker to their organization, what is the easiest way to get a hold of you?
Again, youevolvingnow.com. So YOU evolvingnow.com. A pop-up will come up and it'll say, hey, what are you interested in? It'll send me and my team an email. I will, Nicole, world's best assistant, will reach back out and set us up on a Zoom call, because I don't believe in spewing my menu all over people and assuming that this is what you want and need. So I always like getting to know someone and then asking, hey, what do you want to get out of bringing someone like me in? And now we can explore your concerns specifically, and I can either match your need to what I have, customize, create, or refer. So that's my process. But everything you need is at the website, or LinkedIn at You Evolving Now, Instagram at You Evolving Now, Facebook at You Evolving Now, or Andre Young. You could put that in there. But I have the same name as Dr. Dre, so he's a little bit bigger than me. So when you put
Andre different Young, Andre Young, yeah,
so much.
Yeah, well, and I think what you just said, adapting a talk to the audience is a sign of a good speaker, and so that was really great to hear. Last question. It's a favorite one I love to ask. It's an often asked question, but I think it's really applicable, especially when you're talking to a former athlete. If you had a chance to sit down right now and talk to the 20-year-old Andre Young, knowing what you know today, what advice would you give him?
I give them a few pieces of advice. The two things that really come to mind, the two things that come to mind is one, do your legs more. Hard to be an elite athlete without legs. So legs and explosion more. Yeah, and that comes with you want to work out your way. You want to do things your way, but not the way that your coach or team or whatever may need most from you right now. So the other thing is that marriage piece that I just mentioned. Get more comfortable knowing what and curious about what people need most from you. Most of us are willing, especially if you're a leader, most of us are willing to do the things we believe would take us there. Once you marry that with what you want to do, with what somebody else needs most, it's hard not to lose. It's hard not to win. It's hard not to win when you do that. So those are the two big pieces. One, do your legs more. Then get curious about what other people want and need from you, not just what you want to give.
Yeah, coming from the baseball world, I remember Nolan Ryan had a famous quote: "If you've got a leg problem, you've got an arm problem." So as a pitcher, I can tell you, my friend, legs were everything. We used to call it the pitcher's butt. Yeah, you wanted to have legs. If you didn't have strong legs, it was hard to be a good pitcher. Yeah, so I love that. So, well, Andre, I want to thank you, man. This was fantastic. As always, I love these conversations. I love your insight. If you're listening to this, man, if you've got a child that is coming up the ranks in, youth, high school sports, I hope you take what Andre just said to you to heart, because I'm serious on that. That was about a 3-minute masterclass on parenting and athletes. So, and for the leaders out there listening in, do yourself a favor, whether it's grabbing a copy of 7 Ways to Lead, the Leader's Toolbox, or reaching out to Andre to have him come speak to your organization. You're going to do yourself and your team a big, big favor by doing that. So, Andre, one more time, man, I appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Andy, for having me. It's been a pleasure. And you guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Everybody else, you know what happens when you mix clarity and confidence. You go do wonderful things. Go do wonderful things today. Be good.